You ever have one of those moments where everything just freezes? Like your brain is still playing catch up with what your eyes just saw and what your ears just heard? That's what happened to me the night my fiancée told me, 3 weeks before our wedding, that she needed a break to clear her head. Not a breakup, not a delay, just a break. Like our relationship was a Netflix show she could pause while she figured out if she still liked the genre. My name's Anthony, I'm 29, and I thought I had my whole life figured out. I was the guy who followed the rules. College degree, good job in finance, nice apartment in a safe neighborhood. I wasn't flashy, but I was dependable. I saved my money, sent birthday cards to relatives who barely remembered I existed, and offered to fix things around my mom's house every time I visited. I was the guy who showed up. And for 5 years, I showed up for Natalie. Every dinner, every crisis with her family, every tearful night when she doubted herself, I was there. I thought we were solid. I thought we were building something real. My family wasn't exactly the warmest growing up. My dad bailed before I could remember his face, and my mom, well, she meant well, but she always seemed disappointed in everyone, especially me. I wasn't the golden child. That title went to my older sister, Marissa, the doctor, the golden-voiced speaker at every Thanksgiving. She married a real estate guy with big white teeth and bigger opinions, and the two of them made sure every family gathering turned into a performance. Meanwhile, I was the one fixing the leaky faucet in Mom's kitchen while they held court over wine and bruschetta. Natalie was the first person who made me feel like I wasn't invisible. She laughed at my dumb jokes, listened to me vent after long workdays, and even came with me to help Mom after her hip surgery. She fit into my life so seamlessly that after 3 years of dating, proposing felt inevitable. And when she said yes, I swear, for a moment, I felt like I'd finally made the right choices. That illusion started to crack about 6 months before the wedding. Little things. She got snappier, distant. She stopped making wedding decisions with me and started outsourcing them to her friends. It's just stress, she'd say. Planning a wedding is a full-time job. Fair enough. I backed off. I figured she needed space, so I gave it. But the distance never closed. It just stretched further. She started spending more weekends with her bride tribe and fewer nights at our place. Sometimes she'd ignore my texts for hours. When I brought it up, she rolled her eyes and accused me of being clingy. I wanted to believe it was just pressure. Her mom was a nightmare, micromanaging every single thing, from the flower arrangements to the color of the tablecloths. I thought maybe that stress was leaking into us. I kept telling myself that once the wedding was over, things would go back to normal. We'd go on the honeymoon, laugh under the sun, and come home stronger than ever. Then came the night, 3 weeks before our wedding. A Wednesday. I got home from work, exhausted, loosened my tie, and found her sitting on the couch, already dressed like she was going somewhere. Not upset, not even nervous, just distant. "We need to talk," she said. Those 4 words. They always hit like a bullet. She told me she needed a break, that she felt trapped, that she'd lost herself in the relationship. I tried to stay calm, to listen, but I felt like I was standing outside my own body. She said she didn't want to call off the wedding. Just pause everything. Maybe take a solo trip. Think. I couldn't speak. I just nodded. She hugged me like a friend saying goodbye at the airport, and left. For 3 days, I didn't tell anyone. I walked through my life like a ghost. When my mom called to ask about the final headcount for the rehearsal dinner, I mumbled something and changed the subject. When Marissa texted a passive-aggressive message about my non-responsiveness, I left her on read. I didn't know how to say it out loud, saying it would make it real. Then the phone rang. It was a recruiter I'd spoken to months ago about a position in Seattle. A dream job. At the time, I turned it down because Natalie didn't want to leave her family. But now, I don't know what came over me. I told him I was interested. 2 days later, I was on a video interview. By the end of the week, I had an offer. That night, I sat alone in the apartment, staring at the wedding invitations stacked by the door. I picked one up. The gold embossed lettering. Our names, intertwined in cursive. The venue. The date. It all looked like a joke now. A parody of something that never really existed. So I made a decision. I canceled the venue. Called the caterer. Emailed the photographer. Piece by piece, I dismantled the wedding. I sent a mass email to guests telling them the event was off. No explanation. Just canceled. I didn't call Natalie. I didn't respond to the texts that started coming in. I packed my things, closed out the lease, and 3 weeks later I was in Seattle. I thought that would be the end of it. I started fresh. New job, new number, different coast. I didn't bring much with me, just the essentials. I didn't even tell my mom or Marissa until a month later. They were furious, of course. Mom called it immature and said I owed Natalie a conversation. Marissa accused me of running away like a coward. But none of them had been there that night. None of them had felt that vacuum in the air when the person you love tells you they're not sure if they love you anymore. And for a while, it was peaceful. I walked to work in the rain, got coffee alone, read books in my tiny apartment with its bare walls and too bright kitchen light. It was lonely, but clean, honest, quiet. Until 2 days ago. I came home late after a brutal day at the office. My phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. A minute later, another call. Then a text. "Please, Anthony, just talk to me." I froze. I stared at the screen like it was a ghost. Another text came in. "I'm outside." At first, I thought it was a joke, a scam. But then I heard the knock. Not frantic, just persistent. I walked to the door, looked through the peephole, and there she was. Natalie. Hair longer, eyes puffy, holding her phone in one hand and a folded piece of paper in the other. She looked up, right into the peephole, and said quietly, "I made a mistake." I didn't open the door. I didn't speak. I backed away like it was on fire. And that was just the beginning. Because the next morning, I woke up to a flood of messages from numbers I didn't recognize. "You owe her a conversation. She's been through so much. She deserves closure. You're being cruel." The texts kept coming. From her bridesmaids, her cousin, even one of her co-workers. All of them painting me as the villain. The heartless man who wouldn't even grant his ex-fiancée 5 minutes of closure. But none of them were there the night she asked for a break like we were deciding on a movie. None of them saw what it did to me. And none of them knew what I just found out last night. Because after the 5th text, I finally opened her message history. And I saw something she didn't mean for me to see. Something that shattered whatever scraps of peace I had left. And that's when everything changed. I didn't respond right away. I just sat there on the edge of my mattress, still on the floor because I hadn't bothered buying a bed frame, staring at her message history with a numb kind of disbelief. I hadn't meant to open it. I wasn't planning on replying to Natalie, ever. But curiosity, it's a tricky thing. I thought maybe she'd sense something dramatic, something that would let me confirm, once and for all, that I'd made the right decision by walking away. I didn't expect to see what I did. The first message was from her, timestamp 3:02 a.m. "Please just give me 5 minutes. You don't have to take me back. I just need to say it." But right below it, I saw something strange. A message from a number with no name. "So he's ignoring you now? LOL. You said he was the clingy one." And then another. "Guess the safety net cut the cord." My stomach twisted. There were maybe a dozen messages total, all from the same number, scattered over the past month. Some of them were jokes. Some were cruel. A few were pictures, screenshots of memes about exes coming back after ghosting. But the worst part? Natalie responded to every one. And not once did she defend me. One reply stood out. It was dated just 2 weeks before she showed up at my door. "I don't regret anything. He just never understood me. I needed to live before I settled." I put the phone down like it was radioactive. My mind raced, trying to stitch together a timeline, trying to fill in the blanks. She needed a break to clear her head, but she'd been laughing about me behind my back. Worse, it wasn't just that. The messages didn't sound like a concerned friend comforting her during a rough time. They read like two people enjoying a secret, sharing a joke at someone else's expense. Me. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about every time she'd told me she just needed space. Every weekend she'd spent with her bride tribe. Every time she deflected a real conversation with a kiss and a half-lie. I realized something I hadn't let myself admit. The break wasn't a moment of confusion. It was a cover, a soft exit plan, and I'd been the fool waiting at the gate. By morning, I was exhausted, but adrenaline kept me upright. I went through my workday like a robot, barely blinking. My boss even asked if I was okay. I lied and said I had a headache. I considered blocking her number, but something held me back. Some mixture of morbid curiosity and misplaced caution. I told myself I wasn't going to engage. I just wanted to understand. Then the voicemail started. First one, Natalie sobbing, saying she made a huge mistake and couldn't stop thinking about me. That she knew she'd lost the best thing that ever happened to her. Second one, quieter, more composed, saying she'd been working on herself, going to therapy, journaling, trying to grow. She didn't ask me to take her back, just to listen. But the third one? That one stopped me cold. It was her mother. Anthony, this is Michelle. I know you've made your decision, and I respect your right to move on. But Natalie is hurting, and I think the decent thing would be to hear her out. We all make mistakes, and I think you're being very cruel by pretending she doesn't exist. That was the word they all kept using. Cruel. Not hurt. Not devastated. Cruel. As if I'd pulled the rug out from under a helpless woman instead of reclaiming my dignity. I didn't respond, but I did block Michelle's number. That night, I got a package at my door. No name. Just a brown box with no return address. I hesitated, checked it for anything off, then opened it. Inside was a scrapbook. Photos of us. Printed texts from our early days. A letter. I shouldn't have read it. But of course I did. In it, Natalie said she had panicked. That she thought she needed to experience more before settling down. That her friends had put things in her head. That maybe she wasn't ready. She said she had gone on a trip alone, reconnected with herself, and realized the life we were building was everything she wanted. She claimed there was never anyone else. She just didn't know how to be loved the way I loved her. I closed the book. I didn't cry. I just felt hollow and angry because she was rewriting the narrative, erasing the part where she abandoned me, replacing it with a softer version where she simply needed to grow. The next day, I heard from my mom. Apparently, Natalie had contacted her too. She just wants to talk, Anthony, my mom said. I know it was messy, but you were always the bigger person. Don't shut the door so hard that you can't open it later. I almost laughed. My mom, the same woman who once told me I was too sensitive when Marissa stole my bike in middle school and blamed me for leaving it unlocked, was now giving me advice on boundaries. Did she tell you what she did? I asked. What did she do? Mom replied. She got scared. People get cold feet all the time. That's when I realized Natalie had been busy. She was painting herself as the lost soul, the regretful ex-fiancée, the one who made a tragic mistake. She was controlling the story, and everyone, from her friends to my own family, was eating it up. 2 days later, I got a letter at work. It was in a plain white envelope with my name written in the same looping cursive she used on our old Valentine's cards. I didn't even open it. I tossed it in the trash, walked into the nearest conference room, and just sat there. I felt hunted, watched, gaslit, and then I got the message that broke me. It was from her friend, Lacey, one of the bridesmaids who used to giggle with Natalie while sipping overpriced cocktails and pretending to care about my day. She wrote, Hey Anthony, just so you know, Natalie found out you were talking to someone new. She's devastated. You could have at least waited until she had closure. Waited? I stared at the screen, my pulse thudding in my ears. Waited? Natalie had abandoned me. Natalie had taken a break without telling anyone, made jokes about me in texts to another guy, and then waited 6 months to come crawling back. And now she was hurt because I'd had coffee with someone from my building? I called her. I don't know why. I just snapped. She answered on the first ring, breathless, like she'd been waiting with the phone in her hand. Anthony, what do you want from me? I asked. My voice was calm, but cold. I just wanted to talk. I didn't mean for everything to go down like that. I was scared. I thought. Don't lie to me, I said, and I could hear her inhale sharply. Who's the guy you were texting jokes about me with? Silence. You don't know what you're talking about, she finally said. I saw the messages, Natalie. I saw the dates. Don't insult my intelligence. Another pause, then a quiet, shaky voice. That was nothing. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. And now you're showing up at my apartment? Messaging my mom. Sending letters to my job. I just want you to hear me out. I did. I heard everything. 6 months ago. You wanted space. You got it. Click. I hung up. But the storm wasn't over. That night, Marissa called me. You're being dramatic, she said. She flew across the country for you. She manipulated half my contact list and stalked my apartment. I shot back. She just wants to make things right. No. She wants the version of me that made her feel safe while she looked elsewhere. Do you even hear yourself? I hung up again. And that's when the real betrayal came. I got a knock on the door the next morning. When I opened it, there was no one there, just a folded envelope. I opened it and immediately felt my stomach drop. It was from Marissa. Inside was a handwritten letter, but all I needed to read was the last line. Maybe you're too broken to see when someone is truly sorry. I crumpled the paper and threw it as hard as I could at the wall. It hit the floor without a sound, like every other thing I'd ever done to protect myself. For the first time in my life, I realized that maybe my family didn't care about what happened to me. They only cared about how I handled it. And as long as I stayed quiet and didn't make waves, they'd keep inviting me to the table. But the moment I stood up for myself, I became the problem. That was the breaking point. And what I did next, well, let's just say I stopped waiting for apologies. I started making plans. After I read Marissa's letter, I just sat there, on the edge of my futon, that same cheap thing I told myself I'd replace when I got settled. I stared at the wall across from me, trying to process the truth that had finally landed with full weight. My family didn't know me. Worse, they didn't care to. I'd spent years trying to be the steady one, the peacemaker, the one who kept things from falling apart. I thought that earned me some kind of unspoken loyalty. A benefit of the doubt, maybe, but it hadn't. What it earned me was a front-row seat to my own erasure. The days that followed felt like a freefall. I stopped answering calls, blocked numbers, ignored emails. My appetite disappeared. I'd come home from work, toss my bag onto the floor, and stare out the window like I was waiting for something. I didn't know what. An apology? An explanation? Some proof that I wasn't the only one going crazy. That first week, I barely functioned. I'd wake up, go to work, force myself through spreadsheets and meetings, then return to my apartment and sit in silence. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional siren wailing in the distance. It was like I'd slipped into an alternate dimension where everyone else kept moving and I was just frozen. And it wasn't just about Natalie anymore. It was my mom, Marissa, even a few old friends from back home who messaged me out of the blue saying things like, "I heard what happened. I hope you're not holding a grudge. People mess up." As if this whole situation was a parking ticket I was being petty about. I kept thinking about that line in Marissa's letter. Maybe you're too broken to see when someone is truly sorry. Too broken. It echoed in my head like a drumbeat. And I started to believe it. Maybe I was broken. Maybe I was the common denominator. I thought back to every relationship I'd ever been in, romantic, platonic, familial. And the one thing they all had in common was that I gave more than I got. I showed up. I bent. I compromised. And in the end, I got left behind every single time. I didn't want to be bitter. I really didn't. But bitterness doesn't need your permission. It just creeps in. Quietly. Patiently. Like water in a crack, waiting to freeze. 2 weeks after that letter, I hit what I now recognize as rock bottom. I got an invitation in the mail. It was hand-addressed. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity still had claws in me. Inside was a cream-colored card, thick and embossed with gold lettering. The kind you only see for fancy events. Marissa and her husband were renewing their vows. 10 years of marriage. Destination ceremony in Napa Valley. A weekend of wine, speeches, and celebrating the enduring power of love. I laughed out loud. Not because it was funny, but because the absurdity of it made something in me snap. She invited me. The brother she had just called too broken. No note. No apology. No mention of the letter or our last phone call. Just an invitation with RSVP instructions and a hotel block code. I stared at that card for a long time. Then I walked to the kitchen, pulled open the drawer with my old wedding invitations, the ones I never mailed, and put hers right on top. That's when something shifted. I looked at the pile of things I'd been avoiding. The unopened letters. The stack of moving boxes I never unpacked. The mattress on the floor. The broken lamp I kept saying I'd fix. My life was still in transition, months after I supposedly moved on. So I got up. I started small. I bought a bed frame. Not a fancy one, just something solid. I put the mattress on it and threw away the old blankets I'd been hoarding since college. I bought new sheets. Real ones. Navy blue with white stripes. It felt like nothing, but also like reclaiming something small that was mine. The next weekend, I went to IKEA, replaced the sagging futon, and finally bought a desk. I spent the whole day assembling everything, sweating through my shirt, cursing the instructions, and when I was done, I sat in the chair and looked around. My apartment looked like someone lived there. Not someone in limbo. Not someone waiting. Just someone living. I started cooking again. Not just microwaving Trader Joe's meals, but actually cooking. Pasta, stir-fry, roasted vegetables. I rediscovered how calming it was to move around a kitchen, to slice onions and listen to music and feel like the day had rhythm again. Work got better, too. I leaned into it, not as a distraction, but as a way to build momentum. I started mentoring a junior analyst named Darren who reminded me a little too much of myself at that age. Quiet, capable, but afraid to speak up. He'd always thank me for little tips, and one day he said, "You're one of the only people here who doesn't make me feel stupid." That stuck with me. Maybe I wasn't broken. Maybe I was just tired of being used. The apartment came together slowly. I bought art for the walls. Nothing fancy, just prints from a local bookstore. I got a rug, plants, a real coffee table. I even started going for walks in the evening after work, sometimes down to the waterfront where I'd sit and watch the ferries come and go. One night, I ran into a neighbor, Lena. I'd seen her in the elevator a few times, but never really talked. She had this easy smile and wore old band t-shirts with blazers like she couldn't decide if she was going to a concert or a job interview. We struck up a conversation about the cafe downstairs. One chat turned into another, and eventually she invited me to a rooftop poetry night her friend hosted. I almost said no, but something in me whispered, "Say yes." So I went, and it was weird, and awkward, and great. I met people, laughed, drank mediocre wine from plastic cups. Lena read a poem about how heartbreak feels like a house fire where you're both the arsonist and the insurance agent. I told her afterward that it was oddly comforting. She said, "Thanks. I wrote it during a blackout cry on my bathroom floor." We became friends. Real ones. The kind where you can sit in silence, and it's not weird. We started walking to the farmer's market on Sundays, grabbing coffee, talking about everything and nothing. I didn't tell her about Natalie at first. But one night, we were sitting on the rooftop, and she asked why I'd moved to Seattle. And I told her the truth. All of it. Not just the clean version, but the messy one. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the guilt, the weird, warped grief of watching someone try to rewrite your story in their favor. Lena didn't interrupt. She didn't pity me. When I finished, she just said, "Sounds like she wasn't ready for the version of you that wasn't made for bending." That line hit me like a sucker punch. Because she was right. All my life, I'd been bending. For family, for partners, for peace. But lately, I'd started standing straight. And it felt good. The next few weeks passed quietly. I got into a rhythm. I started journaling. Nothing deep, just a few lines each night about what I noticed, what I felt, what I hoped. Some nights it was nonsense. Others, it felt like I was leaving breadcrumbs back to myself. I didn't think about Natalie much anymore. Or rather, when I did, it wasn't with anger. It was like remembering someone from a past life. A character in a story that used to feel too close. Then, one morning, I got an email. From my mom. Subject, family dinner, please come. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. It was an invitation. Not just to dinner, but to reconciliation. She said Marissa would be there. That they both wanted to clear the air. That they hated how things were left. That it was time to talk. She mentioned Natalie's name, too. Said she hadn't heard from her in a while. Said she'd been through a lot. And that's when I realized. They still didn't get it. They still thought this was about a relationship. They didn't see the real story. They didn't see the way my silence had been survival. That I wasn't punishing anyone. I was protecting myself. And yet, a small part of me was curious. Not about going back, but about what would happen if I finally spoke. Really spoke. I stared at that email, heart beating like a drum. And slowly, a plan began to form. I didn't reply to the email. Not right away. I reread it maybe 20 times over the next 3 days. Each time weighing my options like I was negotiating some silent treaty with my past. The old Anthony, the one who always said yes, who'd walk back into the lion's den if it meant someone else got to feel comfortable, would have responded with something like, "Sure, happy to catch up," and then spent the next week bracing himself for yet another round of veiled jabs and emotional gymnastics. But I wasn't that guy anymore. I had changed. Quietly, deliberately. Not into someone colder, but into someone clearer. And clarity has a funny way of showing you not just what hurt you, but how it happened. And more importantly, why you let it. I decided not to go to that dinner. Not because I didn't want to see them, but because I wanted to choose how they saw me. This wasn't about payback, not exactly. It was about rewriting the script. The one they'd all written for me without asking for my input. The one where I was the hurt little brother, the cold ex, the passive participant in everyone else's narrative. I wasn't going to beg for understanding. I was going to show them who I'd become. And when the dust settled, They'd finally understand what they lost when they treated me like an afterthought. That night, I sat at my desk and opened a blank document. I wrote out a single sentence. You don't get to burn the bridge and then act shocked when I don't swim across. Then I got to work. Step 1 was Natalie. Or rather, Natalie's version of me that still lived in the minds of her friends, her family, and mine. She had spent months, maybe longer, curating this image of herself as the sad, confused ex who'd made a mistake and was bravely trying to make amends. That version of her got sympathy. Mine got silence. But what no one knew, what I barely knew until recently, was that Natalie wasn't just confused. She was calculated. I remembered something she'd let slip once, long before the wedding chaos. We were lying in bed after a party at her coworker's place, and she was venting about an old friend who'd crossed a line with her. I asked what happened, and she rolled her eyes and said, "It's not like I slept with him or anything. I just needed to feel wanted." I never said I was perfect. At the time, I let it go. But now, it echoed in my mind like a bell tolling in the distance. I started digging. I knew her Instagram was private, but mutuals were a thing. I scrolled through tagged posts, looked at public photos. Then I remembered her best friend, Lacey, the one who had texted me accusing me of being cruel. Her profile was public and careless. Buried 3 months back was a carousel of photos from some beach trip. One was a sunset, one was a drink, and one, half-cropped, was a group selfie. Lacey, 2 other girls, and at the edge of the frame, Natalie, sitting on the lap of a man I'd never seen before. His hand was on her thigh. It wasn't obvious. It wasn't scandalous. But it was there. I saved the image. Then I scrolled through his profile, also public, and found more. A group dinner. A hiking trip. Her name never tagged, but her face always there. Laughing. Drinking wine. Sitting just close enough. The last one was from a bar downtown. For people at a table, raising glasses. The caption read, "To finally cutting ties with what holds you back." Posted a week before she showed up at my door. The self-growth narrative was a lie. She didn't come to me because she missed me. She came because that fell apart. Step 2 was my family. This part took time. I knew I couldn't convince them of anything by arguing. Marissa especially. She was the queen of deflection. Every time I tried to call her out in the past, she'd twist it into some therapeutic-sounding nonsense about my unresolved issues. But this time, I had something she couldn't spin. You see, Marissa was all about appearances. Her social media was a curated museum of success. Dr. Husband, 3 kids, fitness journey, motivational quotes in cursive font. Every like was a gold star. Every post was a chess move in the game of social hierarchy. And guess what she was planning to do for her 10-year vow renewal? That's right, livestream it. I found out because one of her old college friends, Callie, who I used to be close with, messaged me. She said she saw Marissa's post about the upcoming ceremony and was shocked I wasn't tagged. I asked if she had the link to the stream. She did. I bookmarked it. Then I got an idea. I wouldn't crash the party. I'd preempt it. I started writing again. Not a speech. Not a rant. A letter. Not to Natalie. Not to Marissa. Not to my mom. To everyone. It took me 3 nights. I crafted every sentence with precision. I kept the tone calm, clear, and devastatingly honest. I wrote about what really happened. About how Natalie walked away from our life together while already building something new. About how my family chose to scold me for not making them comfortable instead of holding her accountable. About how they let the version of events that made them feel better become the only version that mattered. And then I said this. I'm not writing this for sympathy. I'm not asking for your validation. I'm writing because for the first time in my life, I'm done shrinking to fit into the spaces you've allowed me. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to agree. But you will know the truth. I posted it anonymously on a forum where mutuals could see. I included screenshots, cropped, redacted, but clear enough. The beach photo. The bar photo. A snippet of the conversation between Natalie and that mystery guy, the one where she laughed about me being the safety net. Then I hit publish. And I walked away. Step 3 was more personal. I filed the paperwork to officially change my mailing address so no one could reach me through old contacts. I spoke to HR at work about redirecting any personal mail to a private P.O. box. I even changed my phone number again. This time not out of fear, but intention. I was cutting cords. But I wasn't isolating. I started spending more time with Lena. Not as an escape, but as something real. We didn't label anything. We just shared moments. She didn't try to fix me. She didn't tell me how to feel. She just listened, asked good questions, challenged me when I deflected. One night, we were sitting on her balcony, and I told her everything. From the engagement, to the move, to the vow renewal letter. She listened quietly, and when I was done, she said, "You're not looking for revenge." I raised an eyebrow. "I'm not. You're looking for closure, but the kind you give yourself, not the kind you beg from other people." I thought about that for a long time after she said it. She was right. But closure doesn't mean silence. Sometimes it means clarity, and sometimes it means consequences. The day of Marissa's vow renewal, I woke up early. The sun was already pushing through the blinds, painting lines across the hardwood floor. I made coffee, took a long shower, and opened my laptop. I didn't log into the stream. I didn't need to, because 30 minutes before the ceremony started, I scheduled an email blast to go out. To everyone. Every cousin, every friend, every +1 I hadn't seen in years. The same people who'd been sent wedding invites with gold embossed cursive. The same ones who'd whispered condolences and disappeared when things got messy. The email included the letter I wrote. A shorter version. With the photos. With the receipts. The subject line? "Before you raise a glass, know the full story." Then I closed my laptop. And waited. Not for their replies, but for the silence that follows when truth finally breaks the surface. And somewhere between that silence and the flood to come, I started to smile. Fallout doesn't come all at once. It doesn't hit like an explosion. It's quieter than that. Slower. It spreads in waves. Awkward silences, unanswered texts, passive-aggressive comments in group chats that suddenly get deleted, and a strange, loaded absence where there used to be noise. That's how it started. The first wave came about an hour after I scheduled that email blast on the morning of Marissa's vow renewal. I didn't check my inbox at first. I wasn't pacing or biting my nails. I went for a walk, bought myself breakfast from a small bakery I'd been meaning to try for months, sat on a bench at the park near the water, and watched a golden retriever chase ducks. I felt still, not triumphant, not giddy, just clear. When I finally opened my phone, it buzzed like it was having a seizure. Over 40 unread messages. Some were short. A few were long. Most started with some variation of, "I had no idea." My cousin Mark wrote, "Bro, that email. I don't know what to say. You handled that like a boss." My uncle Ray, who never said more than 2 words to me outside of holidays, sent, "Saw the pics. Can't believe she had the nerve. Proud of you." But there were others too. My mom, "Anthony, I wish you hadn't aired family business like that. We could have handled it privately." And Marissa, "I'm speechless. Truly. You would sabotage the most important day of my life just to make a point? That's low, even for you." I didn't reply to either of them, because they weren't asking questions. They were issuing complaints. And I wasn't interested in shrinking anymore to make space for other people's comfort. But the real aftermath came in the days that followed. I heard from Callie again, Marissa's old friend. She said the wedding was a disaster. Apparently, the email had made it to more than just the guests. Someone had forwarded it to Marissa's husband's side of the family, including his very conservative parents, who had not appreciated the sudden blast of drama on what was supposed to be a sacred renewal of vows. The awkward tension started before the ceremony. People murmuring, guests looking at each other sideways. Marissa, of course, had tried to pretend everything was normal, but you can't exactly smile through a reputation collapse when everyone's walking around with your brother's receipts in their pocket. Half the bridal party skipped the rehearsal dinner. One of the groomsmen left halfway through the event. And according to Callie, even the officiant made a vague, uncomfortable reference during the vows to not letting the past become a weapon. Oof. That night, the live stream recording, which was supposed to go public for inspiration content, was mysteriously deleted from every platform. The photographer who had posted preview photos took them down. And Marissa's Instagram, once a shrine to her perfect life, went quiet. For 5 full days. Which, if you know Marissa, might as well be 5 years. Natalie, meanwhile, went ghost. I didn't hear from her directly, but I saw the ripple effects. 2 of her bridesmaids blocked me, probably furious. That was fine. But a week after the email, I got a DM from a guy named Jordan. Name didn't ring a bell, until I clicked his profile and recognized him. He was the guy, the one from the beach photo, the one with the caption about cutting ties. His message was simple. "Didn't realize what she did to you. I should have. Sorry, man." Hope you're doing all right. I sat with that for a moment. I didn't reply. What was there to say? But part of me, some deep, long-buried part, felt seen. It wasn't about rubbing it in. It wasn't about making Natalie hurt. It was about finally breaking the illusion. She couldn't play the victim anymore. Not after I laid out the truth. Not after I forced everyone to look. My mother called again the following Sunday. I let it ring 4 times before I answered. Her voice was tired. Not angry. Just worn. "Anthony," she said, "I've been thinking." I waited. I didn't realize how much I've asked you to carry. How often I expected you to just absorb everything. Still, I said nothing. "I'm not asking you to come home. I'm not even asking you to forgive. I just want you to know. I heard you. And for the first time in months, I felt something warm crack open in my chest." I still didn't say much. But when she asked if she could visit Seattle sometime, just as a mom, not as a fixer, I said yes. Not soon. But maybe. Marissa didn't reach out again. Not directly. But I got word, through the family grapevine, that she'd taken a social media break and was telling people she was reevaluating how much of her life she shared publicly. Which was code for, she got caught. And honestly, I didn't need anything more from her. I wasn't interested in revenge beyond the truth. And the truth had done its job. In the weeks that followed, I found myself exhaling more easily. Things with Lena had grown steadily. She never asked for details, but she knew. Knew when I needed silence. When I needed sarcasm. When I needed to just be a guy on a couch with takeout and an old movie playing in the background. One night, we were out walking, and she said, "You've changed since I met you." I laughed. "Good or bad?" "Neither," she said. "Just more you." And that felt right. Because I hadn't changed into someone new. I just peeled away everything I was never supposed to carry. I've thought a lot about what it means to win. For a while, I thought it was about proving people wrong. About forcing apologies. About being vindicated in public. But the real win? It's peace. It's coming home to a space that feels like yours. It's looking in the mirror and knowing you didn't bend. Not this time. It's realizing that walking away wasn't weakness, it was strength. And that sometimes the cleanest revenge isn't rage or noise. It's calm. It's silence. It's success. It's no longer needing anything from the people who hurt you. Not closure. Not apologies. Not validation. Just this. A full, unapologetic life without them.